Dr. Bach, how do you think the Tudor politics contribute to the formation of the modern British political structure?
Well, it plays a part. I think the modern British political structure has evolved very gradually.
Yes.
And you can go back to the Tudor period to see the very beginnings of that evolution. One of the things that distinguishes England from, say, France or Spain is that the monarch does work with Parliament.
Okay.
And he's not an absolute monarch, as in France and Spain. When Henry VIII pushes through the Reformation, he does it through Parliament. He does it through acts of Parliament. The Act of Annates in 1532, the Act in Restraint of Appeals in 1533, the Act of Supremacy, above all, in 1534. And so I think the king is aware of the usefulness of Parliament in providing him with the opportunity to test important public opinion, and also indeed to ensure that he can get the money he needs.
Yes.
I think I said before that Elizabeth, I think, is much more sensitive to public opinion than her father was. And she calls a number of parliaments. There are 10 parliaments in her reign, and there are 13 sessions of parliament, so within those 10 parliaments, and the sessions last about 10 weeks each. It would be quite wrong to think of Parliament as the sovereign power in England. I mean, today the House of Commons, the Prime Minister and the House of Commons are where power lies. That's certainly not the case under Elizabeth. She holds the greatest amount of power, as it were, in the body politic. And we're certainly not yet at a position where we can say that people think that power comes from below. This isn't yet an age of popular sovereignty. That we have to wait for that until the late 17th century. We still have the idea power comes from above, and that Elizabeth's power is given by God, and therefore the monarch should be respected and obeyed. However, Parliament is very carefully managed. She uses her privy councillors to go and talk to members of Parliament. And there were about 460 members of Parliament by the end of her reign in the House of Commons. She gets the councillors to go and talk to them. And there's a famous speech in 1576 when one of the most radical members of Parliament, Peter Wentworth, he gets up and complains. He says that a famous speech, he talks about rumours and messages, and he says he wished they were buried in hell, because rumours and messages are the privy councillors coming and whispering in people's ear that the Queen would like you to say this, or the Queen doesn't approve of that. She did keep very, very close eye on what was being said in Parliament. So there's a level of freedom of speech in Parliament. There is a perception on the part of Englishmen that they have liberty and liberties which Frenchmen and Spaniards don't have. And this will become much more emphatically the case when we get into the 17th century. But England is different from France and from Spain.
At the very beginning?
Well, from this, I think you could go back to the 13th century there. I mean, the word Parliament first appears in England in 1237, and the first in France in 1236. So the ideas appear at the same time, and Parliament comes from parler, to speak, le mot, their mind. So, however, Parliament evolves very differently. In France, it remains very much an instrument.
Decoration.
Whereas in England, it's both a judicial occasion where justice is done at various courts when Parliament is called, but it's also, and this is very important in English history, the king wants money. and Parliament grants money. And when Parliament grants money, it wants something in return. It wants the redress of its grievances. So there is a certain level of negotiation that can take place between Parliament and the monarch. And that is the case from the Middle Ages onwards in Britain, and it causes sharp controversy when we get into the early 1600s, in particular, between James and Charles and their parliaments.
Yes, yes.
And the English have a sense too, going right back to 1215. 1215, there was a big rebellion against the king, King John, and King John was forced to concede Magna Carta, which is a list of 61 liberties or freedoms, which I think we should perhaps think of them as privileges, which the barons have against the king. And this document is quoted again and again and again and again in English history. It lays the foundations. But we're still at a period where power resides principally in the crown, and Elizabeth's successor, King James I, himself wrote books about the divine right of kings. You know, kings have their power from God. Rebellion against the monarch is therefore rebellion against God. And so that's a very powerful, if you believe that, that's a very powerful position you place your monarch in.
Yes, yes. So can I say that the role and function of Parliament is greatly strengthened in this Tudor period?
Yes, I think you can say that. It's used to push through the Reformation, and Elizabeth uses it to both generate popular support and to gain a sense of what people are feeling.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your very insightful ideas. Okay, please stay with us for more stories to come.